All right, we're recording.
All right, just like that, it is 2 o'clock, everyone. Welcome to the 2023 Central Iowa Watershed Management Authority's annual presentation. Looks like we got a good group today. We have a lot of WMA partners. We have some local county folks, all different, wide variety here today. This is actually our 6th annual presentation, so we're really excited to go through the presentation today. The goal is to keep it light, to keep it fast-paced, to really, at the end of the day, share what Polk County Water Resources and our local watershed management authorities got done in 2023. So we're going to have a variety of presenters today, but really at the end of the day, we're going to walk through anything and everything that was done. Again, we're going to try and keep it on a high level just because there's so much information. I know you guys would love for me to drone on for the full hour and a half, but we're going to try and get through the presentation in 1 hour. If you have questions, we'd love to hear them. Type them in the chat. We'll have time for Q&A at the end. Again, we are keeping it high level. There will be an annual report incoming. So in the next few weeks, next month, that annual report is going to be available to share. It'll be our second annual reports. And the outline of the presentation today is we're going to go through some major kind of key areas of work, starting with education outreach, talk about some different programs and initiatives, some project highlights, talk about greenways, talk about research. And we're going to try and cover it all in that 1 hour. And we're specifically going to be covering Mud Camp Spring, 4 Mile, Beaver Creek, and Walnut WMAs, which, as we know, they cover the Polk County area, ventures in the neighboring counties. But as we are really jumping in, we have a few big themes of 2023 that are really worth noting that are going to set the stage for the whole presentation. ARPA funding, big investment that was discussed last year about this time. You're going to see as we go through a little ARPA symbol on slides at the top, really denoting that those are projects that actually received ARPA funding from Polk County. And again, that's going to be a very common theme of this past year. Other common themes that we're going to really get into, new programs that are up and running, new staff, and at the end of the day, evolving partnerships. Many of us, we know that we've been a part of the WMAs for upwards of 10 years. Personally, I've been serving as your coordinator for going on 7 years now. Jennifer Welch was there day one. We all, a lot of faces have been around. But over the course of this year, like we really feel like that we're starting to evolve that partnership and kind of solidifying. And really, Polk County is serving as a regional team, the Soil and Water Conservation District serving as technical experts, both in the urban and ag sector. Cities locally doing lots of their own amazing projects. And really, at the end of the day, WMA's trying to serve as a cohesive bond between us, sometimes more successfully and sometimes less successfully. But really, they're the one thing that really brings us all together. So we're going to be going through all that today. And again, shout outs to a few of the team that helped put this presentation together. The folks that are really working on watershed management authorities day in and day out. Shout out to Cassie doing education outreach, Jennifer Welch rolling around the urban world, Michael James leading in the ag world, and the face that probably nobody knows is Jason Foss, the guy behind the scenes doing a lot of the survey, design, and construction oversight. So we'll sprinkle in some other new programs and some other new faces that you're probably going to be running into. But this is really the core team. So I wanted to take just a second and thank everybody. These folks all took time to put this presentation together. And although I know everyone loves listening to me talk, I'll get real excited. I'll talk real fast. We're going to break up the presentation today, and we're going to let you hear from a lot of these different folks and talk about the specific things, programs and projects that they've been working on. And not only that, I'll also toss out there a new thing. We've spent a lot of time thinking about 2023. So something we're doing this year is we have sprinkled in our lessons learned. So throughout the presentation, you're going to hear some of the key lessons learned. I've asked everybody on the team, I've asked partners to really think about, like, if you were to drum up all the work in 2023 in water resources and WMAs, like, what did that year mean to you? Like, what did you learn from that lesson? So keep an eye out for those lessons learned. And I tell you, we've thought a lot about it, and like, how can we take what we've learned? How can we take failures, successes, and move forward? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cassie first. Cassie, I'll flip the slides for you, and Cassie's going to walk us through some of our educational programs completed in 2023.
Thanks, John. I'm Cassie Druhl. If I haven't met some of you, I'm the Water Resources Outreach Coordinator for Polk County. And one of the big parts of my job is managing the rain campaign. So the rain campaign is a website, a campaign that advertises all of the cost share programs that are available for cities in the metro to install stormwater BMPs, or what we call rainscaping. So as you can see, a lot of these cost share programs began in 2018 and 2019. The little umbrella there between 2019 and 2020 symbolizes when the rain campaign was formally formed. And as you can see, there's been a steady increase in the number of people that have applied for that cost share funding that the cities provide to put in these practices. So in 2023, we had over 500 practices installed. So very exciting stuff. Next slide. We also tried some new things this year. This was my first full year as the Water Resources Outreach Coordinator and the first full year of being a staff person for the RAIN campaign. And so I had a lot of fun kind of being creative and figuring out different ways that we can reach new audiences. And also now that we have a staff person for this campaign, ways that we can get out into the public and start to, have them match the campaign with faces like mine, and also just other different.
Sorry, Cassie, I think you got muted there for a second.
Yep, no worries. So one of the big things we did this year was we partnered with Ray Gun to make a shirt. It's kind of hard to see here, but a lot of you probably have this shirt. It has native plants on it, making fun of grass, that their roots are longer than the grass. And stay tuned, we have another design in the works with Ray Gun for this year. We also partnered with Polk County Conservation to create park packs. You can see the picture of the park pack on the left-hand side there, and that is available for anyone in the public or teachers to check out. I have a pack, and also Polk County Conservation has several packs. And these are awesome because you can take these to a school or a scout group, and there's tons of water quality topics and activities in there. We also hosted 2 Rainbow workshops. I continue to update social media and provide tools of the month for communities to advertise their cost share programs. And I gave 17 public and school presentations. So as you can see there, we reached a lot of folks this year. Oh, also my lesson learned, drones don't swim. And maybe some of you know that story, but basically, I'm a certified drone pilot now, but it takes a little bit of practice. And I learned very quickly that drones don't swim. All right, and then some other education and outreach successes we had outside of the RAIN campaign. We planned a virtual pond management workshop that drew around 60 people. So that was a really successful program where we invited professionals from the DNR, and then our urban conservation folks, and people from Polk County Conservation to talk about different ways that small urban ponds are managed. I also designed an interpretive sign for Big Creek State Park. So that should be installed in the spring. You can go check that out. Also helped John and Jennifer coordinate the Iowa Water Conference Stormwater BMP Tour, led the 4 Mile Creek Greenway Bike Tour for a group of local Green Club members. And then we brought back the Walnut Creek Watershed Festival. That picture on the left is a picture from that. That was also very well attended. And then finally, we received a grant from the DNR to put creek signs up at some bridges that didn't have creek signs on them. So I think we installed over 70 signs with that grant. And then another big initiative that we helped with this year was the Iowa Rivers Revival Service Squad program. This was a brand new endeavor that Iowa Rivers Revival was taking. And they wanted to do several cleanups in Polk County, and Polk County was able to help fund these programs with some ARPA money. And as you can see there, there was a lot of trash picked up, over 13,000 pounds, with 480 volunteers over 19 events. And we are hoping that once the new director is hired for Iowa Rivers Revival, we can continue this partnership throughout 2024. Oh, also my lesson learned, there's something special about getting a group of people to clean up the stream. You can see the impact right there. All right, so some 2024 education and outreach goals. This is a big one that not very many people know about yet, but I hope there aren't too many hearts broken out there when we say that we're going to start phasing out the rain campaign sculptures, the raincoat and the umbrella. We feel like it's time to go into the next phase of the rain campaign. So what we plan on doing is taking this old trailer that was the Polk Soil and Water Conservation Districts, and we're going to turn it into a fun display that will have a TV mounted on the outside where we can put videos and do interactive things for booths. And then we'll have a cool wrap around it. So we've got some ideas floating around, and hopefully that will be on the road in late spring or early summer this year. And then we're also partnering with Drake to do an awareness survey. The rain campaign's been around for 4 or 5 years now. So they're gonna help us figure out where maybe neighborhoods we're not hitting, or different ways that we can approach certain audiences to get more people involved in the rain campaign. We're also exploring reaching out to larger properties to see if we can help them with their rainscaping solutions. And like I said before, I'm still partnering or giving partner communities tools of the month and other education materials upon request. So anytime that any of our partners are interested in creating some outreach materials to promote their programs, please get a hold of me. I'm always open to new ideas. I created binders for WMA board member representatives. I just finished them this morning, and they are ready to go. If you are at the April WMA meetings and you are a representative, you will be receiving a binder. And if you want one before April, just let me know and we can get one to you. And then also new this year is monthly lunch and learns. So we have a wide variety of topics that everyone in our WMA meetings helped us form, and we're hoping to have monthly speakers. The first one is next Tuesday, the 20th at noon. So if you're interested in attending that and you didn't get the invitation, let me know.
Thanks, Cassie. And next, we're going to jump to the ag side of the world. So Cassie spends most of her time talking to all the city folk. Michael James, on the opposite side from Polk Soil and Water, he spends all of his time talking to farmers and landowners. And I can tell you, I've been pretty impressed with Michael and that he can put together a great field day. I've been to a lot of field days, and there's like 10 agency people there and like 2 landowners. But I've continued to be impressed about Michael. He's able to get people there and make it worthwhile. So, Michael, will you kind of walk us through what you had going on in 2023 with your education and outreach?
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Michael James. I work at Polk Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm the WQI coordinator, and as John said, I work with agricultural producers. Part of my job is to work towards the goals in the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy by reducing nitrogen and phosphorus pollution in surface water. So cover crops are a really valuable tool to prevent erosion and absorb excess nitrogen in the field and prevent them from entering surface waters. So one of the things that we did this year was we developed a what we call a cover crop demonstration plot. And to encourage the adoption of cover crops, we basically rented 5 acres of agricultural land. We planted 5 different species of cover crops side by side so that farmers could see the crops, get information on how to plant them and when to plant them. And then we held a field day later on in the season after harvest. We invited Mark Lick from Iowa State University Extension and Hillary Olson from the she's a state soil health specialist, to talk to the farmers and to answer questions. The demonstration plot is an ongoing project. So this year we plan to showcase the best cover crops to grow ahead of corn and ahead of soybeans. So this will continue on into the next year.
Excellent. Thanks, Michael. And my one event for the year that I got to enjoy was we actually held a celebration for the 10-year anniversary of the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy. Many of you may have been out there, but we included an on-farm tour. We had a couple hundred attendees, hayrack ride tours, and really was a centerpiece event for Central Iowa. So rounding out our education outreach for this year was this 10-year anniversary event that we're sharing right now. And I'll tell you, on the education outreach side, we can never underestimate the benefits of just getting the public out and engaging them and educating them. And both Cassie and Michael have done a great job of getting that awareness out there. So next, we're going to jump into some programs and initiatives. Now, last year we spent a lot of time talking in detail about specific projects, but as we were like putting together our information for this year, we really realized that we have some bigger programs that are worth sharing at more of a grand scale. The first one being our cover crop seeder partnership. Now, those of you that aren't familiar, basically Idalls, Polk County, Des Moines Waterworks, we got together and we actually purchased a high clearance cover crop seeder. The goal here is to provide a piece of equipment that can actually drive through the crops in July and August. And you can see here, you've probably seen these as sprayers before, but we got the first production model off the line from John Deere. And these actually drop seeds through these vertical tubes that you can see in this picture here. And we actually lease it out to Heartland Co-op, who they manage the program. They sell it to producers and landowners, and they actually go out there and seed the cover crops. So we've had a staged goal for each year, and we've seen, again, continued improvements in our acreages seeded. And to date, over the first 3 years, we're looking at a little over 18,000 acres seeded, over 70 farming operations. But we had a big dinner a couple nights ago at Des Moines Waterworks, and what I shared is like the most meaningful part of this for me is there's a lot of folks like Michael and myself and others who we've gone out and we've been the government employee that we knock on people's doors. We're like, we're the government. We're here to tell you about this conservation practice that you should do. For me, this program was the first one where we actually had Heartland Co-op, who is not the government. They are the people that already have relationships, and they're going out and they're actually selling this conservation for us. And at the end of the day, this cover crop seeder has proven that it gets the seed on the ground earlier and it gets a better growth on the ground. Last year specifically, we've continued to push the envelope. The first year we seeded just under 4,000 acres. In the last 2 years, we've been sitting right at about 7,000 acres. And this past year, we hit right under 8,000 acres. We did have a goal of 9,000 acres leading up to 2024, where our goal is to seed 10,000 acres. Now here you see like a picture of this cover crop seeder, and that is snow on the ground. So one of the things we've been learning is that to keep pushing those acreage totals up, we need to start thinking more about how we can expand the time of year that this machine can be used. So one of the things that Heartland really pushed this year was to also do some dormant seeding for those landowners that weren't able to get seeded in the fall. So those cover crops will be growing first thing in the spring. It's also worth noting that we talk a lot about the water quality benefits of cover crops and soil health. But one of the things that really pushed us right off the bat early on was City of Des Moines, who had done a study with the Flood Center, and they actually did some quantification of the flood control benefits of improving soil health over a big watershed. All that coming together, that we are really open to receive water quality and flood control benefits. Now, again, that's all positive, good things. We're seeing all these thousands of acres. We have new partners out there, but no project is perfect. And really the theme of this last summer was we have another drought year. And what happens in drought years is cover crops don't grow very well. And so across the board in a lot of our programs, and this cover crop seeder in particular, it also was we had a lot of landowners that were really second guessing if it was worth their monetary investment to plant cover crops, just because of that fear that if it doesn't rain this fall, we're not going to get good growth of those cover crops, and we're not going to get the benefits we hope to see. So that's just the reality of it, that we're going to see that the ebbs and flows of changing environments. So hopefully we're going to see some more rains this spring. We're going to get back to more of a normal year, and we're going to help push that up to that 10,000 acres. And the last thing I'll share on this is this wasn't really our idea. We stole this idea. It's a great thing to steal good ideas. We heard about this from Kansas, who is doing this. And we've heard back from the Kansas folks, and they're generally seeing 2,000 to 3,000 acres seeded out of each of their 9 machines. So we're knocking those numbers out the water. So back to a positive spin right on the end there. Batch and build, we've probably all heard this one now. It's like beating a dead horse. Yeah, batch and build. No, but it's a great program. We are it's a program where we've been looking at installing saturated buffers and bioreactors across the county, up into some neighboring counties. And those of you that aren't familiar, the reality was Amanda Brown, who's on this call, and myself, we spent about 6 years trying to get landowners in Polk County to install these practices. And we only installed 5 in those first 6 years. And really a lot of it was based around the process and traditional cost share. And this, as we sit today, is the process we've now gone through 4 times, which is basically in February and March, we do some targeted outreach after we've mapped some targeted fields. We get out there in March through June and try and survey every tile that we got permission on. Over the course of midsummer, we take our findings and our preliminary design back to the landowners. We present what would work in their field with hopes that they would give us permission that they want to install these practices. And if they give us permission, we've been moving to the full design and conservation planning with close ties with NRCS and IDOLS and other partners. But basically, we spend the rest of the year getting all the ducks in a row. And so over that first year, we line up the projects. And in the second year, in February, we generally target for a final sign-up meeting. So we actually just got done with our sign-up meetings for our 2024 round of installs. Our project bids are going out next week. Project bidding happens, and we expect construction to start in May. And during that year two, we essentially start the year one process over again. And so you've seen our numbers here are they've been pretty consistent, around 50 to 70 installs annually, except boom, right there in 2023. Really important. We had essentially some difficulties happen where we had designs and some of our partnerships, really, they didn't make it to the finish line. And this whole batch and build is really based around, can we meet this process timeline? And the more we get away from this process, the less legitimacy we have with landowners. And while operating in some upstream counties, to be frank, we had some trouble hitting those deadlines, and we saw our numbers drop in 2023. The good thing is our local team, we've really drawn it back into our Polk County watersheds, and we're ramping up for another about 50 installs in 2024. But that goes into this is something we've been doing for a few years now. And the big takeaway for me is evolving new teams and partnerships. And there's some pros and cons to that. But really, the exciting thing is we started in Polk County. There's now a great Story County Ames team. And these are actually all the exact people. There's even me on the bottom left when I used to get to go do field work. I just laid out in the field and watched Jason and Michael work. But it takes people to do these things. And the more people we have doing it, the more practices we're going to get in the ground. Boone SWCD and Riley Bass up there in Beaver Creek, they got a group up and running. This year, the new caveat was City of Des Moines provided some SRF-sponsored project dollars to do an upstream practice in Dallas County. And then also exciting, Heartland Co-op. We've now mentioned them that doing our cover crop seeder program. They're like, hey, we can do this stuff. And they actually have their own private batch and build that they have going out with their customers. Now, again, I spent some time, I was asking, what's your lesson learned? And Jason Foss, who's kind of the strong silent type, I even got a picture of him there in red in the middle. His lesson learned for 2023 was really, you're all in, you're all out. And there's a couple ways you can think about that. And one is, if you're going to do this batch and build, your whole team really has to be all in. Like, there's a significant workload. You have to get the surveys done. You have to get the designs done. You have to get the agreements in place. And if you're not truly all in as a team, you're going to see that team unravel. And the same thing goes if for ours as Polk County, if we're going to partner with someone to do it, like, there's no half partnering. Like, again, if we're going to work together with Des Moines and do this SR project, we have to be all in, because at the end of the day, you have to serve as a team. Now, we all probably remember Tanner. There he is right in the center. Tanner he did a great job this first couple of years, and Tanner's been helping take this batch and build expansion statewide. And so I asked him if he had a map of the different areas doing batch and build. And for me, this program was honestly career changing. It made me personally think about how we work with private landowners differently. And it's come up time and time again that other counties are giving it a whirl, and they're seeing positive benefits. And now I think it's safe to say there's hundreds of practices in the works and being installed across the state using this model. Now, batch and build, like doing saturated buffers and bioreactors, that's just one practice. So a couple of years ago, we had the thought of, we could do this in the urban environments because a lot of us have cost share programs, specifically soil quality restoration. Now, I assume most of us know what soil quality restoration is, but if you don't, what do we know? We know a lot of suburbia, a lot of our topsoil is not in good condition. Homes are left with a lot of overwatering. They're applying fertilizers just to try and get their grass to grow. And there's city programs out there to try and get people to install and incentivize them with a 50-50 cost share. So like the city of Ankeny would cover half the cost to do a soil quality restoration. Now, unfortunately, a lot of homeowners had trouble finding contractors. They had trouble fronting the money. There are all these problems. So a program that we helped launch first in Polk City in 2021 is where we, again, following a similar process. In April, we did a bunch of outreach. You get people excited about improving their soils and getting greener, healthier lawn. You all build up to a level of excitement around May 1st. You say you're going to help cover half the cost, but instead of the homeowner fronting the money and hiring their own contractor. We batch groups together and we install the groupings in 50 to 100 to 200 at a time. We bid the projects out together. The homeowners are given 30 days to pay, and SQR happens in the fall. And then we can do some rolling deadlines to go until our money gets spent. So the evolution over the last 3 years is in 2021, there were 63 projects done in Polk City. On top of it, there were about 30 done annually in the Des Moines Metro at that time. Going to 2022, Clive jumped on board and they pushed their own program, got 118 projects done in 2022. 2023, Clive actually carried their own program, self-funded forward. Johnston jumped into the mix, and Polk City jumped back on and got a lot of these communities have gotten grant funding. And it looks like Johnston has moved into first place with getting 147 projects done last fall. But to be totally honest, again, there's pros and cons to everything. And this was a big lesson that Cassie and I learned very clearly this year. And the lesson was, when you're working with up to hundreds of homeowners and you're relying on contractors and you're relying on getting a massive amount of practices done, but keeping your quality of practice up, there is a thin line between success and failure. And really what that thin line is defined as is how well can you communicate and how well can you get a contractor that is truly a part of your team. And if you communicate deadlines and goals to homeowners, you have to follow through with that. Now, Cassie did a great job in 2023 that I just breezed through this program in like 3 minutes, but there's a lot to it. And if you want to do it, you got to do it right. So Cassie actually did develop a SQR Batch and Build handbook. And it basically walks you through everything you would need to know if you wanted to do this program. And it walks you through outreach materials, mailers, hiring contractors. But in Polk City this year, we actually had to fire a contractor and bring another one on board because we could not deliver what we all promised to homeowners. So again, if you do it right, you have hundreds of people talking about soil health and water quality, and it's amazing. If you don't do well, you have hundreds of people that are like, my yard isn't what I wanted, or it didn't get done in a timely fashion, and the local government is the face of it. So it's a great program. We're excited to see a lot of communities still moving forward with it, but we've learned a lot this year, and you really have to stay focused on communication. So again, those of you that are have been coming to these interviews for a couple of years, you've probably heard about our WFPO program within NRCS. WFPO being Watershed Flood Prevention and Operations. This is a program we've been working on with NRCS for going on 4 years now. We had identified 16 projects, 15 of them stream reaches and one stream stable and one wetland. But after a long back and forth, we were the first program in Iowa to go through the WFPO process with NRCS. Long story short, we are parting ways with the feds, but we're able to use a lot of the information that we spent on this to pursue some alternative funding. So we've now are closing the deal on a partnership between IDALS, Polk County, and local governments across the eastern half of the county, totaling about $17 million is what we're looking at right now, to do roughly 10 stream miles of stabilization. Now, the original goal was to do 15 stream miles, and we're doing some active fundraising. But we see this as a success overall because of the difficulties we got into through the WFPO program. But the one caveat is we have a shorter timeline. With WFPO, we had, once we got to the implementation stage, we had expected about a 7-year period to get these practices built. We now have a hard deadline of end of year 2026. So really what this means is you're going to expect to see a lot of stream projects. We're going to be moving forward very quickly. But what we know is we can't build 10 miles of stream restoration at one time. So we are going to be looking at staging these projects, staging design and permitting to try and phase them, with our hopes to be the first projects in Ankeny being constructed in fall of 2024 and to be completed by summer of 2026. So you don't want to get too close to those deadlines. So it's been an interesting process. And we're excited to move forward. And thank you, IDALS, for stepping up and looking at partnering with us to do some stream work. And another exciting piece is we do have some research interests on stream restoration. So we are bringing together a group of researchers to try and talk about how we could quantify some of the benefits to water quality by doing stream restoration. Now, when we were talking about ARPA projects last year, we were at that time ARPA helped us get the cover crop cedar program started. We were doing the saturated buffers and bioreactors. But we're like, we should start a wetland project. And also it was Jen Terry, who was at Des Moines Watershed at the time. She's like, we need to do a wetland wave. And I was like, yes, we should do a wetland wave. But personally, a lot of our team, we've done a lot of urban wetlands and a lot of wetland restorations, but we had not done the big nutrient reduction wetlands that were really being pushed statewide. But the idea was as simple as, could we take what we've learned from the batch and build and apply it to wetlands? So over late 2022 and into 2023, we actually spent about 9 months trying to meet with everybody who did wetlands, like researching like what did it take to actually build wetlands. We got $1 million commitment from ARPA. We leveraged that into, we developed a 2080 agreement with IDALS, which they were doing some with other counties at the time. And the first thing we did is we actually partnered with Ducks Unlimited, who we learned had a great mapping process. And we mapped over 1,000 wetlands in our targeted watersheds of our WMAs here in central Iowa. From those 1,000 wetland sites, we then vetted them down to our top 50 sites that we were going to try and approach landowners in 2024 to see how many wetlands could we build, and really developing a targeted outreach plan. So I tell you, this is the most complicated thing I've ever been a part of, and I think IDALS kept joking with us, like, Johnny, like, these wetlands are very complicated. Like, this is it's not easy work. And we're like, yep, we're all in, we're doing it. So the kind of the circular process for this one, as we have it laid out, is identifying sites with DU, Polk County, and IDALS in the district. We have Heartland Co-op, again, common theme, and Polk Soil and Water. They actually take our concept designs and easement offers to landowners, those first 50. They make a pitch. If we get the go-ahead, we move it into engineering, where we have a pre-qualified list of engineers. And our goal here is really speed and flexibility. So we've been trying to give groupings of wetlands to engineers and trying to simplify the procurement process to really keep things moving as fast as possible, which at the end of the day is not very fast. But the engineers, they put together a preliminary design. We present it back to the landowner, and if they give us the full go, we then move into an easement and abstracting process. And then once we get through that, we actually we bid out these projects and construct them. All in all, on average, I'd say what we're seeing is really what we were told. It's about a 2-year process for each wetland that might make it to the finish line. And that includes outreach, design, permitting, and construction. Now, you might be like, okay, wetlands, like, there's a lot of types of wetlands. And what we've seen so far is there's several categories of wetlands we're pursuing. Some of them really targeted nutrient, like the breakpoint, the floodplain wetlands, tiles on wetlands. Using pumped wetlands is something new we're dabbling in as well. But also, we can't ignore the opportunity to stormwater wetlands and even oxbow restorations, the classic, which if you remember back a few years ago, we did a whole bunch of those. These are really all on the table. And we've been trying to really keep it, leave no stone unturned. Is just, where can we put wetlands on the landscape in our targeted watersheds? And we worked with some great designers. We put together some great resources. On the left there is a pull out of one of our brochures. And as we sit today, of all those different types of wetlands, we actually have 19 under design right now, which is all sites where the landowner said, yes, I'm interested in this, please pursue it. A couple stormwater wetlands that kind of follow their own process. And here's an interesting one. I was kind of calling around, and Ruth McCabe, we may have worked with Ruth before, but she works with Heartland Co-op. She's their senior conservation agronomist. And Ruth said something that was really interesting to me that made it into our top list of lessons learned. And that is, when we go out and we pitch these wetlands to landowners, what we've been seeing so far is that there's really an ethical and moral value system among ag producers to maintain the identity of the land. And the identity of that land is, this is agricultural land. This land is meant to produce crops. And what Ruth has helped us maneuver through that, because on a face value, that means I don't want to lose cropland. And that's a very sincere thing, because they farmed it for sometimes over 100 years. But success for these sites so far has really come from trying to preserve that identity but finding the opportunity to layer on the wetlands. So we really have to find those low value spots. We have to minimize impacts to good productive acres, because people are like, it is truly an ethical and moral value of these farmers and landowners, is that this land serves this purpose, and we have to, like, really, we can't change that identity. And that's been something that I'd never experienced before, but it's very, very important. We've already learned that in just a few months. So another program that's actually just getting underway, brand new program, is really based upon landowner education. So statewide, there's a lot of programs out there for farmers and producers, the people growing the crops, but there's a lot fewer programs out there for the landowner specifically. And there's, like, landowners can vary in every way. They can live in Washington State and they own land in Iowa. They could have inherited a farm. They don't know anything about a farm. They could be the farmer themselves and be the landowner. But with some ARPA dollars, we actually did an RFP, a request for proposals, and we wanted someone to start from scratch, a targeted landowner education program. And our award went to Iowa State Extension with a program that they're calling Social Science Meets Soil Health. And they're really looking at bringing together some experts in the fields of conservation, agronomy, economics, and law, and take all the programs that they generally focus on for farmers, but turn it to landowners, and trying to bring landowners in a very targeted way into the conversation. Now, what's excited me the most is, like, how is this different? And what they put on their team is some really strategic use of social scientists, because education can be very vague. It can mean a lot of different stuff, but using those social scientists to really try and pull out the pieces of what actually works in these conversations. So we're really excited to see about that. And a slide that I didn't make, but the other program is actually a profitability program that we're still putting the pieces together with Polk Soil and Water Conservation District, looking at mapping out profitable and non-profitable acres and using that as another tool. And with that, I'm going to stop talking for a minute or so, a couple minutes, and we'll let Riley Bass introduce herself and just talk a little about, she's the new Beaver Creek coordinator, and talk a little bit about, on a high level, what she's rolling into in Beaver Creek. Riley, you want to jump in for a few minutes?
Yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Riley. I'm the Beaver Creek Watershed coordinator. I just started this past October, so I've been just kind of working on getting up to speed with all the projects Beaver Creek does. So basically, we have our edge of field practices, our wetland restorations, and our soil health program. And so multiple sites were surveyed this past year from our previous coordinator, and 8 bioreactors were put in and 2 saturated buffers. And then, as well as that, 2 oxbow projects have been picked up at the end of this year in Polk County and are being designed right now and should be done by the end of this year. And lastly, our soil health program works on having cover crops and no-till, and we have 16 participants with 540 acres. So that's big for us. I think last year we only had about 7 people in it, so we're growing. And along with that, our WMA has made a new Facebook page. So if you want to keep up with us and see what Beaver Creek is up to, you can look up Beaver Creek Watershed on Facebook and keep up with us that way.
Awesome. Thanks, Riley. And it's been fun getting to know Riley. Laura was around for a couple of years, and she got a great job with Wisconsin DNR and moved up to Wisconsin. But it may also put in perspective when Kyle Ament and DNR and myself, we have to write this grant. I didn't put it on as a lesson learned, but we put a very diverse workload. And for a new coordinator coming on, it was like there's a lot of catching up to do. Like we had 3 different major areas of focus: wetlands, soil health, and edge of field. And one of my lessons was like, there's definitely benefit to like simplifying and targeting in Beaver Creek. So, but Riley's doing a great job, and she's rolling forward, and she's doing a great job of fitting in and learning as she goes. So thanks, Riley. One other new program that's new to Polk County, not directly tied to our watershed management authorities, but new for 2023, is we actually are bringing back the Integrated Roadside Vegetation Management Program. There's a mouthful for you. Good acronym, IRVM. But many counties have IRVM programs. Dallas County, a great example, very active. And in its simplest form, the IRVM programs look at converting road ditches from, a lot of times, cool season brome grass to native prairies. So we actually hired Ryan McFerrin this year, this last summer. He's currently writing an IRVM plan for the county, both a long-term plan and an annual work plan. And our goals here at the county are not only to do roads, but also do some of our trail systems. Ryan and I spent a lot of time talking about roadsides. And to be honest, like we've been doing things away in Polk County Public Works for a long time. And Ryan's lesson was some of the stuff that to paraphrase a little bit, but change is hard. Like if you've been managing road ditches one way for a long time, change is not going to happen overnight. And we're really focusing on making some incremental changes a little bit at a time here at Polk County Public Works, but also excited to see long-term, like cities can have IRVM plans, and how could some of these lessons learned be actually trickled down to doing work in the cities or even on a watershed scale. So we are starting this year in some of the areas of the county that are the furthest from development, because we're looking at like longevity of our investments. But long term, could we look at converting roadsides and actually allow them to be annexed and developed, but protecting them and keeping them as a resource? But that's long term. But Ryan is right, change is hard, and that's what we're all here for. But Ryan's a great plant expert. So if you ever need someone to talk to about Latin names of plants, I don't know if Ryan's on this call, but Ryan will hook you up. And oh, look, there's Allison Van Pelt. We all know Allison. Allison is also launching a new program that, again, not directly related to our watershed management authorities or our watershed specific efforts, but it really is. So she's looking at climate action, climate pollution reduction, sustainability, and she's launching a new program that there's kind of two phases. One is she has a planning grant that she is leading to develop a plan for our MSA, which is, I believe, 7 counties. Don't quote me on that, but and over 80 communities. But there are also some very large grants coming up this spring that she is working on some grant applications. So she's calling this effort, it's being called What's Next Central Iowa. So definitely reach out, and it's something I'm sure you've all heard about by now, but I'm excited to see where that program goes. And again, there's a lot of crossover between water quality, flood control, and climate pollution reduction, which I'm sure we'll be getting into down the line. So with that, we're making good progress. It's 2:41. I'm hoping no one's asleep yet, but I figured at this point we've been talking for 40 minutes. So what's a good presentation without a little bit of speed dating? Maybe not the norm, but speed dating is what we're calling this next section. Jennifer Welch and I are going to tag team showcasing some of the actual projects. I said I wouldn't get into the details, but hey, we're going to share a little bit of details, because what's watershed improvements without some good projects? So our goal is we're just going to kind of rapidly go through some of these projects, very high level, but if anything strikes your interest, jump in the chat, shoot me an email. We'll love to. I could talk about each of these projects for probably way too long. But I promised Brett Vanderloon that I would not put anybody to sleep by talking too much in detail. So we're going to speed date. First one, Creekview Wetland. This is a wetland that we've been talking about for a couple of years. We're like 80% done with it. We had it going until Christmas, had to shut down. Lesson learned from this one. Here we go. Jump into the Polk County accountant. I asked her, I was like, we've been spending too much time working on grants and things together. And I was like, what did you learn from 2023 from our water resources stuff? And I did paraphrase, but the lesson learned is with great success comes great responsibility. And that is Creekview. And when we say great success, we have 6 different grants that are paying for this wetland. This wetland treats about 500 acres in Ankeny. There's also roughly a 38 pages specifically agreement that made this project a reality. With each one of those grants, it tells the story of every grant has its own quarterly reporting requirements, has its own financial accounting requirements. And the more money we've brought into the county and these WMAs, we bring in the requirements that come along with it. Very clearly for this year, from my perspective, both accounting and legal review, those workloads really have to take into consideration. And just because you're getting millions of dollars, what are the strings attached to those millions of dollars? And not that it stops us in any ways, but you can't forget about those responsibilities that come along the way, and you can't forget about those details. This one, we were able to some good stories about able to avoid permitting with a diversion structure that minimized stream impacts, doing an off-channel wetland, utilize spoils from some adjacent development land. The goal is here is Polk County builds it, Ankeny is going to own it, maintain it, but we're going to bring on a specialty contractor to help with that prairie establishments. Broadway Improvement Project, or as I'm calling it, as of today, Biocell City. So I know a lot of you out there have built biocells in the road ditches, in the road right-of-ways. We hadn't done that in Polk County, so we're like, we should build 25 in the road right-of-way, going all in. But this project transects through Des Moines and Polk County. We got our first 6 built this last fall, and honestly went about exactly like I expected. We only had to rebuild them once, but we all know how tricky these practices are. But I think they're coming along nicely. We got to our roadside program timed out very well. That it's the same deal as we're taking care of prairie in the road ditch. We should be able to take care of stormwater practices in the road ditch. So I'm really excited to see how this one plays out. But there's no better way to learn about it than to go all in. So we're gonna try and treat water quality off of those road ditches. Keep rolling. The project that I'm going to call the never ending story. So we haven't talked about Finley Basin in a while, but this project in Walnut Creek, it's come up for the last 4 years because it's the site of probably the most flood storage we could do anywhere in the water. It is the most. Over 400 acre foot of storage is the option here with a dry basin. And the vision for this one is really never give up on a vision just due to money, or really just due to any hurdles. The hurdle that came up in early 2023 was we were told by the Corps that we would have to pay for stream mitigation for everything in that dry footprints, which was contrary to everything we'd heard in the past, which what that meant for here is about $2 million in stream mitigation. And although we had money to build the structure, that was not enough to get us to the finish line. And to be frank, we couldn't fundraise to get it to the finish line. However, one last ditch effort that we haven't shared with anybody yet, but more is forthcoming, we hope, is we have some conceptual wetlands that could go inside the footprints of the dry basin to provide water quality benefits and hopefully open up some other funding options. So those of you that are in close proximity to this, we're going to be talking to you soon, but we're working out some details about how we could perhaps get this never-ending story to the end. Demonstration farm in north central Polk County. Here we have one farm where we have already installed bioreactors and saturated buffers, and we believe this will be our first wetland installed in summer of 2024 through the wetland wave. A landowner that wants to help tell the story of different practices, and he's already got every one of his neighbors installing practices, saturated buffers and bioreactors. And I may be the first field in the state that has all 3 of these practices in one field. Our second project plan for install in 2024, treating a few hundred acres in the Camp Creek watershed, is actually a wetland pond combination where we're using the head of a pond to convert it into a wetland, and an old pond dam that's over 50 years old, repairing that pond dam for the landowner, treating water quality and improving some flood storage in the Camp Creek watershed. Again, thinking outside the box has become a common theme for these like literally every wetland is different, and it's been fun seeing us try and make them successful. Here's one hot off the press, another wetland in northeastern Polk County. And lesson learned from this one, so this was fun. Michael James helped coordinate a meeting with the landowner, and he asked the landowner to come into the meeting and share some of his goals. And I was like, I had never really asked a landowner, like, what are your goals for this project? Like, you kind of, sometimes you beat around that bush and you talk about it, but the landowner actually came out and he had written out all of his goals to share. And so my lesson learned was really ask questions, and sometimes you'll actually teach you something. And the landowner, he wants to do silvopasture. He wants to plant trees around the wetland, and he sees lots. For his farm, his vision was he wanted to improve water quality. He wanted to improve habitats. He wanted to improve the health and wellness of his cattle, and he wanted to improve carbon sequestration on his farm by planting trees. And I was amazed by a landowner that had taken the time and thought and put together plans and how this could all work together. But again, if Michael had not asked him, could you write out your goals and come share it with us when we're all together? And now what are we doing? We're writing a grant. There happened to be a grant out there that says we want a project that talks about agriculture, carbon sequestration, and water quality. And that wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have asked that question and he wouldn't have written it out. Upper 4 Mile, here's a big one. This one drains about 5,000 acres. We're presenting several options, but here's again that story of, do you want to own the wetland? Would you like to sell the land? Should a landowner even own a wetland that big? Are they ready to maintain it? As a landowner, do they feel comfortable making that sell and losing that agricultural land? Like, what are the tax implications? Everything, all of those questions are coming into play in this one wetland. But again, thinking outside the box, we had an upstream we had originally like a pretty traditional like dam across Upper 4 Mile up here, and we had impacts onto the neighboring landowner to the north. Landowner to the north was on board for a year, and then they promptly changed their mind, which is totally okay. But we, instead of giving up with some great direction from IDOLs, we looked at doing diversion structures and still trying to get close to that 0.5% treatment area and doing 2 off-channel wetlands. So this one's still in the works, but if Finley Basin's ever taught us anything, the bigger the project, the slower the crawl. But we're trying to keep some positive movement on this one. Here again, Corteva and Johnston, they had heard about some stuff happening in Beaver Creek, and they came out of left field and were like, hey, we own 1,200 acres along Beaver Creek. Could we make a difference in our water? Like, we want to be good land stewards. And by the way, we bring thousands of people to our campus every year. We'd like to teach them about being good land stewards and help be a part of telling that story. So we brought out Beaver Creek coordinator Jason Foss from Public Works, our county conservation ecologist, and they really put a plan together. And they gave them a suite of options. And the plan we're moving forward with right now is about 20 acres of oak savanna restoration, about 40 acres of prairie restoration, an oxbow restoration. I can say restoration 3 times fast. An old Schlinker tile draining about 200 acres, diverting that into a floodplain wetland. And last but not least, why not toss the stormwater wetland in there as well? Maybe again unique, drive by and see 3 wetland types in one field on a corporate campus in the Des Moines Metro is what we're shooting for on this one. Something I'm really excited about. Matt Lichtenberg, I think I saw you on here. I threw a quote out, which I kind of deemed like, I'd say that's your lesson learned for the year that you've taught us. And this goes to wetland design. Like, if it doesn't work, change it. And this has been time and time again, like the design didn't work. Let's think outside the box. Let's get input from Iowa State. Let's get input from researchers, and let's try different things. And it might not work because of permitting. It might not work because of landowner restrictions. Chichaqua dubbed this one Pump Town USA. We're moving forward with a plan to use pumps to rehydrate a wetland in the North Pump. The goal is to rehydrate 4.5 miles of Old South Skunk River Channel, the second pump, and the third pump, rehydrating over 100 acres of shallow wetland area, with the top 2 being primary goal water quality, the third pump being primary goal wetland habitats. So awesome. The hurdle we ran into here was we're going to try and do drainage district levee removal, blow out a levee, push water into wetlands. Turns out if you have levees protecting you from flood control and you're a trustee, that idea may be very scary and intimidating to you. So pumps were an option that we learned about that could help not have to literally remove levees, but have more control over those wetland sites. So that's a sprinkling. I mentioned we have 19 under design of wetlands, a wetland heavy conversation here. Another 28 we're targeting in February this month. But that's my speed dating. And with that, Jennifer Welch, we have not heard from yet today. Jen, you want to take it away and talk about some of the projects that you're really the running lead on? Jennifer Welch, are you with us? Are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Scared me for a sec. We're good.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was talking and you weren't hearing, evidently. Good. Well, thank you, John. Yeah, we'll continue with the project list. You have a next slide for me, John?
Sure
there we
did.
go. Okay. So yeah, we're going to continue on and talk about some more wetlands, some urban wetlands. So I've worked on a lot of projects. John's talked about a lot of them already, and they're going to be sprinkled in the rest of the talk as well. But I wanted to just highlight a few of them that have been completed here in the last little bit, and some of the things that we've had going on, just to give you some idea of all the work that's going on. This is in Johnston. It's called Crescent Chase, and we created a stormwater wetland, and then also stabilized a perennial channel that goes down below that through commercial and multifamily residential area. So this area did not have, it had just a small old detention basin that wasn't sized appropriately for, the way we do things. And we were able to take about 17 acres of drainage and manage the small storms for that, and then actually some of the large storms from a little bit more area, and the rest of it moves around this. So we couldn't quite fit everything we needed to into this, but we were able to do what John said and figure out a design approach that worked to utilize the screen space for some really good water quality treatment. And one of the other projects that's pretty exciting that I wanted to spend a minute on was in the city of Elkhart. We were able to really do something kind of unique here, where they had an existing wastewater treatment lagoon that was no longer going to be used, but the community is growing around it. And we're able to brainstorm and utilize this as a stormwater management basin for the community. So they did not have a real planned out stormwater drainage system within their community. And as it continued to grow, of course, we saw some issues with flooding and just some extra water hanging around. So as the wastewater treatment went offline, the thought was, hey, we could add some stormwater drainage network through town and then put that water into this old lagoon and create ourselves some park space, some fishing, and do water quality treatment and stormwater management for the unified sizing criteria as well. So that's what the pictures down in the lower area show, the original. And then you can see in the picture in the top left that you can see the 4-bay rock channel that the water goes across. And then in the other top right, you can see the hole that they created in that berm to connect these two ponds together. And then the lower one, you can see some of the fish structures, etc., that went in there. So this is a unique project that's going to be, have multiple benefits for the community and also for recreational purposes as well. So we also have a whole list of, some different completed projects where just a number of different funding streams that were used. John mentioned, just a number of different funding streams. So we have some SRF sponsored project funding, some IFA funding, some SRF loan funding, as well as urban WQI, just a number of different projects from the one you see aerially here, the Blue Creek Basin in West Des Moines, the channel stabilization with some detention. We've also had some stream and floodplain restoration, regenerative channel stabilization going on. We're really hoping to, look at that going forward and get some guidance in the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual on that regenerative channel stabilization. And so we've just had a number of different practices and projects going in across the watersheds this year. And then the next one that's happening right now is the Glendale Cemetery Pond. This is a pond that flows down into Walnut Creek. Right now, the construction is actually underway and it should be completed by early summer. It's about a 2-acre pond, but it was managing runoff from 122 acres. So, through the use of some urban WQI funding, they're able to look at managing that urban runoff from that 122 acres by increasing some storage and creating some modified outlet to help manage the water quality volume and, reduce peak runoff rates that were otherwise, going through this pond in the old single stage outlet structure. So here's another example of some good retrofits in communities to really help with channel stability, water quality, and management and habitat. We've also got some fun projects happening in Clive. We've got some restoration along Little Walnut Creek. That's going to be happening right along Alice's Road, east and west of that, along Little Walnut Creek. There's also the Greenbelt Landing stormwater wetland that's going to be going in at the Aquatic Center location, along with a lot of other really nice amenities. This is a stormwater wetland that is really going to be managing on-site water as well as much off-site water as possible that would otherwise come down and go directly into Walnut Creek. So this one is going to be fun because it will have a boardwalk and just a really nice multitude of good educational opportunities for people that aren't necessarily seeking out learning about it, but would be there, looking at or playing in the area and be able to see visibly what we're trying to do with some stormwater management. So I think, both of these projects are going to be, really valuable and, very visible along the trail system and able to have some great education and tour options for us as they get completed. And then we have a number of projects that are still in the project pipelines, lots more projects in the works. Starting in Altoona, we've got some the Townsend Pond and the Tuscany Pond that are, looking into the next phases. Des Moines has this dry basin you see in the photo in the bottom that we're looking to retrofit into a stormwater wetland. And you can see the Des Moines River right up there. So that water was, coming through there without the water quality treatment. So if we get this stormwater wetland retrofit in there, we're going to have, a lot of water quality treatment within some existing space. So I really think that's, one of the things that we've really looked at heavily and mentioning in this is, what space do you have? Where can you fit these practices in, or where can you retrofit practices into that landscape to really make a big difference in your runoff and the whole unified sizing criteria. Johnston's looking at some Beaver Creek stream restoration right now, and then also we've got the stormwater wetland and some downtown pavers and biocells looking forward in Perry. Pleasant Hill has 4 Mile and Little 4 Mile restoration along the stream that's going on. And Waukees got a great stormwater wetland greenway area that's going to be treating a number of acres and just beginning the process of separating the watershed and, breaking it down and really treating all the different parts of it. So we've got a lot of projects in the pipeline that we've been working on.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. And a great
Sure
shows we have some regional programs, cedars and wetlands and things. And then there's a lot of individual cities that are really leading their own projects. And Jennifer gets the opportunity to really serve as a lot of times a technical advisor for state funding, whether it be WQI or SRF. So shout out to all the cities really taking the lead on all these projects across the metro and in these watersheds. I will tell you, I did lie to everyone. It's 3:02. We're not done presenting yet. I say 15 more minutes, and then I know we're endless questions, but it looks like we haven't lost anybody yet. So we're going to keep rolling. And next up, the one and only Amanda Brown, who's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the greenway work happening across the metro, specifically starting off with 4 Mile Creek. Amanda, are you on?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll be quick because I know we're already over time. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. I'm Amanda Brown, conservation ecologist with Polk County Conservation. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the 4 Mile Greenway. We've made some good progress. I know you guys have heard about this the past 2 years as well. We've done a lot of natural restoration work out there. So one of the biggest things we did this past year was did some forestry mowing on our woodland acres. We did about 120 acres, and what this really does is helped open up the woodlands and allowed the understory vegetation. You can see in the picture on the right there, there's some good woodland flowers coming up because we were able to open that canopy. The photo on the left shows the difference between an area with forestry mowed and an area we didn't. So that was a big thing we did, and John has a lesson learned up there that I really learned this year in the 4 Mile Greenway. Basically, don't underestimate the impacts of litter and trash, what they can have on a park system. In the Greenway, we deal a lot with litter and trash everywhere. And, we were just focusing on cleanups, trying to get cleanups out there every once in a while, using volunteers, using our own staff. But really, we need to figure out a long-term solution for this trash and litter, whether that be a consistent cleanup effort or something like that. So that's one really important lesson we learned, because really people start to see it as a park when there's a lot less of that trash and litter around. So go ahead to the next slide, John. We've also been focused on native prairie seeding down in the Greenway. We seeded 15 acres this last year. It's still in kind of its first year, so it doesn't look the greatest right now. But if you do go south to an old prairie planting that we did, oh gosh, it's been about 3 years now, it looks really good. And those 2 photos are from that prairie planting that look really good. So I encourage you guys to get out there and check that one out if you haven't. And there's another photo there, kind of an aerial view. You can see, this is very different for a prairie to be in the middle of 2 roadways. So it's definitely a change to the landscape, but it's really turning out good. And we think it's a really good educational component, but then also good for water quality, of course. You can go to next slide. So Trails End Mitigation Bank, or Trails End Wildlife Area, this is up by Berwick. This has been a project that we've been talking about for a long time. The wetland phase is finally complete. So if you go out there now, you can see the wetlands on the landscape. It has been seeded. Of course, the seeding just hasn't been established yet. But there's about 47 wetland acres out there right now. And then there's one 13-acre basin that's more of kind of a fishing recreation area. There's 83 acres of prairie that'll hopefully begin to start establishing. And then we actually did plant over 2,000 trees as well as part of this project. So really neat. We're excited to see it kind of start to flourish in the coming years. So another part that I wanted to mention was we're actually looking at expanding the Greenway footprint a little bit. This is quite a bit north, up just south of Alleman. We're calling this the Zeal property. This is one of our newest acquisitions in the 4 Mile Greenway. We have a lot of plans for this site. Right now, there's just a few mowed trails in there, but we're looking at potentially doing stream restoration, doing some oxbow restoration, maybe some wetlands, doing some prairie plantings, and then also doing a more robust trail network through it with parking lot and stuff like that. Just a really good recreation amenity, but then also serving wildlife purposes, but then water quality too. So that stream that runs through there is actually 4 Mile Creek. So we really got a good chunk of 4 Mile Creek up there in the northern part of the watershed.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I don't know if you want to cover some Beaver Creek stuff or if you want me to, or if Cassie Cook's on the call.
I'll let you do it. Cassie's definitely more involved. I don't know if she's on the call, so you go ahead and do it.
Yeah, no worries. So I won't touch too much on this because talk about big and complicated, but exciting. In Beaver Creek, with a partnership with Camp Dodge, we did get an approved Army compatible use buffer program, which essentially focuses on buffering around military installations and providing Department of Defense funds to acquire land, because what you don't want is there's a sound buffer around a military base that you ideally would avoid, like building houses, because they wouldn't like the guns going off right next to their house. But cognizant that there were some active developments in the city of Johnson, so a plan was put together that included some allowing for finishing some of those developments, but staying outside of the yellow line, which is essentially the buffering zone. And awesome that the plan was approved and the first property was acquired, 62 acres along Camp Dodge, right along Little Beaver Creek, which in my mind, I want to build a giant wetland with a diversion structure, but time will tell. Another very exciting one that people probably on this call have spent years putting together, but land acquisition between County Conservation and Natural Heritage Foundation of the Brenton Slough, which is right in northwestern Polk County. 1,100 acre land acquisition with a 52 acre natural wetland in the centerpiece of that parcel. Long-term goals for Polk County Conservation to manage it as a wild area, and lots of planning underway. But worth noting on this one, something that's been talked about for years, one of the last great natural treasures of Polk County is going into public ownership for people to enjoy for decades in the future. Last Greenway one is something at Mud Camp Spring. We those of you, like years ago, we did a 4 Mile Creek master plan, and over the last decade, it's helped us do targeted acquisitions and water quality practices and recreational trails and 300 house removals, all that fun stuff. It all started with a good plan. So we do have a Mud Camp Spring Greenway master plan underway right now. Our hope is to have it completed by this summer. But for me, one really important lesson that's become clearer and clearer is that it's really important for WMAs to have a project that they can work on together. And our goal is really that each year to have a cohesive project that all the WMA members can do, knowing that they also have other day jobs. But for Mud Camp Spring right now, that is doing a Greenway master plan. Our plan is in Walnut Creek to do an RFP this spring to target some projects or endeavors to help identify what does Walnut Creek want to be doing. And 4 Mile Creek, the Greenway has been a big piece, and also starting off a lot of these programs in 4 Mile Creek. So big lesson learned, something we're going to keep pushing for the next couple of years. And boom, we've made it to the last section, research projects. I know there's a couple of researchers on here. The joke here is you build it and they will come. We don't generally start off with looking for researchers, but we build some good projects and they tend to jump out of the woodwork. One of them being an ISU nitrate study that we're doing with Iowa State, where Drake had done some preliminary nitrate sensors before we installed like 40 saturated buffers and bioreactors. Awesome that Iowa State jumped in and we're able to get some more equipment put out there after those practices were installed. So the goal is we have pre-data, we install a bunch of practices to reduce nitrates, and let's gather some post-data and try and quantify a nitrate reduction on a watershed scale. Next one, we build a lot of bioreactors. We throw wood chips in there. Sometimes it's really hard to find wood chips that meet our requirements. We failed, I think, 3 times in a row of writing grants. Iowa State wrote some grants, and Polk County we were in a kind of a support, trying to help them out. And then what do you know? Late in 2022, they got 2 grants funded right off the bat. So basically taking on-farm trials of different types of wood, corn cobs, shredded wood, which every city probably has a pile of shredded wood, which right now we're not allowed to use. But to do on-farm trials and do performance monitoring and look at field scale demonstrations. So this is long underway with most of our 2024 installs a part of this study. And almost lastly, something new we brought back for this year was doing stream assessments. So we did have our intern focus on doing stream assessments. They started this year with 4 Mile Creek, and they partnered with Des Moines and Ankeny and other interns. And we did a simplified RASCAL, not RASCAP, assessment process that we developed with DNR to basically give us a snapshot of the current status of that creek. We do plan on doing that again in 2024 and moving to another watershed. And last but not least, looking up to ahead for 2024, we were basically in agreement in Walnut Creek that we want to do a study with Drake University to dive into this E. coli and pathogen issues that have been identified in several studies and try and figure out what exactly is going on in Walnut Creek where we see some of these elevated E. coli levels. So some more coming on that one, something we hope to get underway later this year. And in the last 3 minutes, looking ahead. So we've spent a lot of time. I stay up late at night and think about all these projects. A lot of us do. But what does it all mean for moving into 2024? And something that keeps weighing on our team's mind is the idea that if you're doing a little bit of everything, you're not doing a lot of anything. That's been a lesson learned. But the idea is there's so much we can be doing. But we have to keep in mind that if we spread ourselves too thin or we try to do too many different things, we may not be getting done what we really want to. And there's some serious benefits to focusing our efforts. So something we did really for the first time in 2023 was succinct goal setting for each WMA that really we can try and hold ourselves accountable over the course of the year. Identifying and collaborating on, I'd say, one meaningful WMA project in each watershed each year. So find one project that makes sense for us all to work on together. And there's many other projects that we might do individually, but let's find something we can work on together to really make those WMAs meaningful. We know we're going to be we're now formally moving forward with stream projects in Eastern Polk County. Wetlands are the new focus. We have probably what I would say we our last major saturated buffer and bioreactor round of installs in Polk County, because the reality is Polk County, we've done all the good sites, and the sites are getting fewer and far between, which is a good thing. And cover crops are going to keep rolling. Policy, something we didn't talk a lot about today, but there's lots of communities still working on stream buffers. There are some state impacts that I know we're all aware of, but policy is going to continue to be a big thing. It's a commonality between all of our watershed plans. Public education, rain campaign is not going away. We're not going to ever underestimate the importance of just educating the public. I say selectively expanding partnerships and staff. We know we can do more things with more people and more partners. selectively being always what are the strings attached to those partners and those staff, and trying to be as efficient as possible, because through efficiency we can get more done. And I think we have a couple Great Outdoors Foundation folks on here, but conservation funding, that fundraising endeavor that Great Outdoors Foundation is leading, figuring out ways to funnel good projects to those folks. Really excited. We had our first 2 projects funded this last fall and over the winter, a wetland and a stream restoration section. Big hopes for Great Outdoors Foundation and then doing their fundraising thing. And with that, thank you, everybody. Ending with a cute picture of my daughters in the water, because I think we all have our reason we're doing this stuff. Enjoying our natural resources with our families is my thing. So thank you all for your spending the last hour and 15 minutes with us. And those of you that want to stick around, I think we can jump in the chat and see if there's some questions that we want to address.
Yep.
So
thanks everyone. I'm going to put a link to a survey in the chat. I'll also email it to everyone on this call along with the recording once we have that, in case you want to share it with others. We appreciate your feedback on the presentation. And John, I'll go ahead and read the questions to you.
Let's do it.
Actually, some of these questions might be for other presenters too. Here's our first one. Just curious, who's doing the stream stabilization research? Would love to read the results of that when it's finished.
So this was really, this new funding effort is really just the last month or so as moving forward with some state and local funding. So we're bringing together a group of researchers from Iowa State, Idalls, and Polk County. We're going to be actually meeting this week to talk about who are the best folks out there, and how are we going to research, and what are our goals. So that is fresh off the press, and we're going to be putting that team together. So if you have stream experts that you know you've worked with, we would love to hear from them. A couple of names right off the cuff: Peter Moore from Iowa State, Tom Eisenhart, and Sarah McMillan. A couple of them newer Iowa State staff, Sarah specifically, and Peter, stream experts. So those are the first people we're meeting with.
Okay. What do maintenance programs look like for, let's see, specifically Glendale Pond, for instance? Are there any maintenance plans for that built into the program?
Jen, you want to take that one, Glendale?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, all the projects that have any state type funding streams in them generally have like maintenance plans. Some of the different programs even allow for establishment maintenance, meaning that for the first 2 or 3 years, there's a more stringent process in effect, especially for native plants, just so that it can get turned over to owners, maybe established as opposed to not. So it just kind of varies by funding type, etc., on what's really in there. But in general, we know the need for good establishment of natives and work to get that into plans. When we can, we have maybe specialty contractors that take and do that. Sometimes the cities or entities do it themselves. Sometimes they hire it out. It depends a little bit on if there's funding in the plan or in that funding stream for it. So
Great, thanks. Do you have any restoration stormwater projects in small neighborhoods where maybe multiple landowners could get together? It seems like the greenways and corporate properties are easier, but it would be interesting to see any retrofits in older neighborhoods. Who wants to take that one?
Cassie, do you want to share your recent meeting you had with the Des Moines Metro Stormwater stuff about rainscaping larger properties and the interest and feedback on that?
Sure. So I did have a meeting with some of our WMA members from the communities just to gauge how they are getting the word out about stormwater practices to larger property owners, if they are at all. What I got back was that the majority of the cost share programs that are available that we advertise for the rain campaign do apply to larger properties, but they don't get a whole lot of bites on that, simply for a couple of reasons. Maybe we haven't been approaching those landowners on a regular basis to get them thinking about it, but then also, it's a lot more expensive to put rainscaping on a large property than it is a single residential house. And so a lot of times what needs to be done on a large property is going to exceed that cap that those cost share programs supply. But that doesn't mean we can't educate them and make them aware of changes that can be done on their properties in order to help manage stormwater. So we're going to keep thinking about that. If anyone has connections with any large property owners that are interested in doing that, we do have a website on the rain campaign that shows the master green plan for 1963 Bell, and we're using that kind of as an example. So we can always talk to folks if they're interested in seeing options for their own properties. All right, any other questions? Here we go. With Polk County Hazard Mitigation Plan being currently in the process of being updated, are we, as in Watersheds, working towards making sure that the potentially multi-beneficial projects are getting included in the plan so that potential HMA dollars can be leveraged?
Yep, we've been talking at length about that. We've had several meetings with the hazard mitigation staff. And I think our goal is to keep some of the open-ended language in there for watershed improvements, but also a lot of the cities all being engaged in the plan updates and knowing what projects would fit best for their community. The key, in my opinion, for watershed scale is how we can find projects that meet the hazard mitigation and other federal funding requirements. A lot of times the cost benefit is the biggest key. So we've really been taking some of that feedback on like what kind of projects would really fit that criteria. So when that funding comes available, we can leverage those dollars and get them on the ground. But it's an evolving door that we're still learning. But certainly it's been an effective tool for buyouts, especially in the lower 4 Mile Greenway. So that's one rather straightforward way that it's been used recently.
All right, next one. Has Polk County considered leveraging funding, for example, for stream assessments, monitoring, and maintenance to meet future needs or permitting requirements when implementation funding is limited?
That's a quick question. And so one thing we've been trying to do is how do we like cost effectively on a region identify what are the key, like what's the current status of our streams? We all know funding research is a very difficult thing. So on the research side, when funding has come up, using research to try and quantify benefits, specifically for this big stream effort that's going to be going underway this year, it just really makes sense. Because if we're going to be investing significant dollars into it, not only should we protect infrastructure, but perhaps we can quantify some of the water quality benefits. Because to be frank, there's a lot of money out there right now for water quality, whether it's like wetlands, cover crops, saturated buffers, but there's not a lot of money for stream restoration. So the quantification, using research to quantify that, I think is going to be a key. So it is something we're looking to do the next couple of years with some of the upcoming stream projects, but not something we've done, at least not from Polk County, a lot in the past. Unless Amanda, you have anything from your guys' research and quantification side that is worth sharing?
No, I don't have anything really that we've done.
Now, I will say we did meet with the Corps last week about their regional permit for stream restoration. Had a very positive meeting, and our goal, and actually perhaps a very good fit for the projects we're about to move forward with. So I think that's a big positive. But I think as they start solidifying some of the parameters of their regional permit and allowing for feedback before it's like set in stone, is one of the most crucial, that all of us that do stream projects should provide that feedback. Because a lot of these we all know these projects are good, and we need to make sure that our good experiences are relayed into those permit requirements. There's a long-winded roundabout answer.
Any other questions? Please type them in the chat.
Hearing none, unless we ever any jump up, I'll thank everybody for your time. Thank all of you that are engaged in water resources. Thank all of you that are come to our WMA meetings. I'll tell you, as the kind of coordination team, it's a constant effort to like make that time worth it, make those meetings worth everyone's time and those efforts. Really, like, how do we cohesively do things when we all have our own projects? It's an ever-changing thing. But I think we're really learning stuff, and we hope to keep these WMAs rolling into the future and keep doing good projects. Hearing nothing else, we made it 3:24, 6 minutes early. Thanks everybody. And until next year, we'll do it again, and we'll probably see a lot of you the next WMA meeting.